Welcome to the order of Monday morning. I'll give the sign. We're grown-ups, aren't we? Anyway, uh, I got out my old Chicken Kabala this morning, and I was thumbing through it, uh, and I did something that I seldom do. Now I I've written quite a few books and wrote things to other things that got published and stuff, and I have footnotes. Okay, I put lots of footnotes because, well, first of all, you have to do it for reference purposes, and they have to be formatted and in such a way. And I always screw it up, and the editor always said, "No, no, you put the author's name in there." But that's another that's another story. Uh, but lately, it's been much easier for publishers, I guess, okay, to instead of embedding the footnote on the same page that it's referencing, they put it as an end note at the very, very end, as if that's going to be easier for the reader to access it. Because that'll incorporate having to put like a bookmark at the very end, and then when you see that footnote, say, "Gee, I'd like to know a little more about that." That's a curious thing. And I see there's a end note there. How many times do you stop and go to the end note? Well, it's a pain in the ass to do it, but you do it. But it also results in the situation where you've got a whole section in the back that's just notes, okay? And in the Chicken Kabbalah, it's there's the very last the last page of the text of Chicken Kabbalah there, the secret of the Shem Hamafawash, the last written words of Rabbi Lamed ben Clifford. Now there's 72 words, which is a Kabbalistic thing. The 72 is there's 72 names of God. Okay, that's the Shem HaMephorash. But anyway, I digress. God is undivided. God is pure potentiality and realizes nothing. God can only realize itself by becoming many and then experiencing all possibilities through the adventures of its many parts. The ultimate purpose for my existence is to exhaust my individual potentiality. My love for God and God's love for me springs from the great secret we share. The secret is God and I will achieve supreme enlightenment at the same moment. Now, that's a digression, but it's a cool one. Anyway, now here's the notes. There's the notes for the foreword, okay, and the introduction, okay, and you'll have to keep moving your bookmark around, and see chapter 4. See chapter. Wouldn't you just be irritated to go to all the trouble to stop what you're reading and turn to the back of the page, and if you don't have a bookmark, thumb through it, the back of the book, and find the footnote, only to see it say see chapter 4. Yeah, okay. But anyway, this morning I was reading it as if it was a full text, and I read, and it's some of the best parts of the book are these damn notes, and only a percentage of the people will ever read them. Here's a note on the Rabbi Ben Clifford says, there's no such thing as correct Hebrew pronunciation. Pronounce it any way you want. You know, the Kabbalistic words, Hebrew words. This is the rabbi's dogmatic attitude concerning the pronunciation of Hebrew words made him the target of ridicule from nearly all quarters of the Kabbalistic community. Depending on the dialect, there are, of course, many correct ways to pronounce Hebrew words. However, the point I believe Ben Clifford was trying to make is that, so far as the study of Kabbalah is concerned, pronunciation is ultimately irrelevant. Arguing over it is a waste of precious time. By assuming this cavalier attitude, the Chicken Kabbalist enjoys an exhilarating level of spiritual freedom to pursue the more important aspects of the work. And in this particular book, it's extra fun because I'm introducing Rabbi Ben Clifford. Here's Lon Milo DuQuette, the guy from California, okay, and I'm commenting on him. So the footnotes allow me to blur the boundary between, is this Lon DuQuette having me on, or is this the rabbi? And he's talking like the rabbi's real and things like that. But anyway, I'm going to see, I'm flipping around. I got to flip around because there is a chapter called the 10 Command-rants. Okay, these are the 10 Command-rants of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, and it's sort of upon these 10 Command-rants, the entire subject of the Kabbalah is addressed. Okay, that it sort of sets the stage, almost the table of contents for the book that follows. 10 Command-rants, all is one. Second, first commandment is a lie, all is nothing. Third, there really isn't a creation, time or space, heaven or earth, but there is a you. Now I got footnotes for all of these. Okay, hang on. We perceive there is a creation, time and space, heaven and earth, because of a fundamental defect in our powers of perception. 5, this defect cannot be repaired, but it can be overcome. Okay. In order to overcome our defective powers of perception, we must be willing to abuse them until they break. Everything in heaven and earth is connected to everything in heaven and earth. Everything in heaven and earth is the reflection of everything in heaven and earth. Everything in heaven and earth contains the pattern of everything in heaven and earth. And finally, the one I want to talk a little bit more about today is look hard enough at anything and you'll eventually see everything. Okay. Now, keeping all of that in mind and turning back, trying to dig out this footnotes again here. And they're broken up by chapter. Okay. If I would just read these notes as if they were a book themselves, which I was doing this morning, here's what I just came up with when I turned to chapter 2. It is a Kabbalistic mystery of the highest order that the 3 letters of Ein, meaning not or negative existence, when reordered, A-N-I, become the Hebrew word for I, or myself. Now that second commandment is, first commandment's a lie. All is nothing. And I talk about Ein Sof are the three veils of the negative. And that first super ultra nothing is called Ain, A-I-N. Okay. And the footnote here, which is, you could meditate on this footnote and the fact that the most absolute of absolute nothingnesses, when you reorder its name spelled in Hebrew, means I or myself. Okay, the next footnote is Ben Clifford's translation of the Sefer Yetzirah says, quote, deity created the universe with the help of three imaginary friends, numbers, letters, and words. In 32 mysterious paths of wisdom, they consist of 10 Sephiroth out of nothing and 22 letters. Now, I talk about that in the text too, but early on, I set you up with this footnote, with that information. And that the 10th Command-rant that said, in a sense, nothing is real but you. Let's see what the 10th Command-rant actually says. Hang on. It says, there really isn't a creation, time or space, heaven or earth, but there is a you, okay? And the footnote says, at least I am real. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure about you. Anyway, all those Kabbalistic connections and stuff, I say, isn't this a recipe for madness? And it says, wake up, you're already crazy, and blind and deaf and dumb to boot, and numb to boot. See chapter 10, okay? But here is what I really wanted to share, hang on, is this. Keeping in mind that you want to look hard enough at anything and you'll eventually see everything. Is this it? Hang on. Oh shoot! I should have bookmarked it. You know, in Buddhism has and to tell you the truth, Buddhism, especially Zen, and Kabbalah, at least how I see it or take it, is so much alike. As a matter of fact, I call Kabbalah Western Zen. But I started, let's see, oh shoot, I really didn't mean to thumb through this thing. Well, here we go. When I say look hard enough at anything, you'll eventually see everything, I mean it exactly. Just as the Buddhists say, you know, what is Buddha nature? Where is Buddha? You know, Buddha's in 5 pounds of flex or flax. He's in flexes too. Or Buddha nature is found in a steaming pile of donkey poop, you know, or anything. That's, look hard enough at anything, you'll eventually see everything, because if everything is in everything, everything is in everything. Okay. And if you would take, let's say, a favorite book of yours, let's say Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, and just decide, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm on a desert island. And this is the only book I've got. And it's going to have to be my Tao Te Ching. It's going to have to be my Bible. It's going to have to be my book of the law. It's going to have to be my guide. It's going to have to be my entertainment. It's going to have to be my encyclopedia. It's going to have to be my dictionary. It's going to have to be me. It's going to have to be God. And then you look hard enough at that book. And if you're burdened with the knowledge of certain just basic Kabbalistic tools of the trade, gematria, Tamura, things like that, and you know how to count, and it makes it a little easier. But basically, if you look hard enough at anything, you'll eventually see everything. In the opening to the 10 Command-rants chapters, chapter 2, and I introduce it, okay, as Lon Milo DuQuette. And I start it with a quote from Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford in the epigraph. Don't worry if none of this makes any sense to you right now. It's enough to remember that realization of the One is the second to the last goal of all Kabbalists. The final goal is to attain the consciousness of the nothing. Okay. Now here's my introduction to the 10 Command-rants. And you may think it's just, well, of course, it is what it is. Rabbi Ben Clifford claimed that in the winter of 1989, he made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, where he climbed Mount Sinai to, as he put it, touch base and get further clarification on several matters pertaining to Scripture. On the summit, the Supreme Deity allegedly appeared to him in the form of a rotating tongue sandwich that lectured Ben Clifford for about 6 minutes. To quote the rabbi, now, the Lord's lustrous lingua lashed from the luminous laser-like lights that licked the length of the lush and lonely landscape. Later, I laughed like a lunatic as I lay lifelessly limp and lingered upon the lilt of the last littlest letter of the laws and laudable lessons I so lately learned. Okay. There are 30 words that begin with the letter L. Now, that's the rabbi's name, Lamed, Lamed, the Hebrew letter Lamed. And, Lamed means ox goad and all sorts of other things. But it also, first of all, it's an in-joke, a Kabbalistic in-joke, that if you'd waste your precious 2 minutes of your time to count all those words and see, oh, well, Lon put 30 L's in that goofy thing, you know. Now, that's time you're never going to get back, okay? I apologize. You're never going to get that time back. But while you were doing that, there was a lot of other shit that you weren't doing. And not only that, you were starting to connect several things with several other things, because They just do. They just are connected. And everything in heaven and earth is connected to everything in heaven and earth. And everything in heaven and earth is a reflection of everything in heaven and earth. And everything in heaven and earth contains the pattern of everything in heaven and earth. And you've just engaged yourself in that process. Sure, it's funny. Okay. Then he goes on to say that, of course, this story is a complete fabrication. To my knowledge, Ben Clifford never visited Israel, and in 1989 would have been physically unfit to climb any mountain. In fact, I've spoken to several of his early students who informed me that in the winter of 1989, now remember, he said he made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, where he climbed the mountain, Mount Sinai. And on the summit, he met with the supreme deity, who appeared to him in the form of a tongue sandwich. In other words, a tongue sandwich lectured him on top of Mount Sinai. Okay. I've spoken to several of his early students who informed me that in the winter of 1989, the rabbi was hospitalized in New York City after suffering an emotional breakdown on the observation deck of the Empire State Building after becoming violently ill at the Carnegie Deli. Be that as it may, the fact remains that in 1989, Ben Clifford did indeed publish a short treatise on the nature of creation and the underlying theory of Kabbalistic study. These 10 command-rants, as he called them, this gives me the opportunity to do this. These 10 command-rants, as he called them, are the work of unquestioned genius. They are perhaps the most concise description of the nature of reality ever penned, reducing complex and inscrutable concepts to their essence. Their publication in the prestigious Kabbalah magazine, Gomer, resulted in Rabbi Ben Clifford's overnight transformation from crazy old burned out lunatic to crazy old burned out lunatic holy man. Okay, that look hard enough at anything, you'll eventually see everything. And I was looking in the footnotes, and I got that little bit of wisdom out of it. Let's see. Here's another footnote. There's certainly is no ambiguity about the documents. I refer to some. They were fabricated entirely by Rabbi Ben Clifford and written with a number 2 graphite pencil on sheets of modern history notebook paper. There is perhaps no more pathetic example of Rabbi Ben Clifford's naivete than his inclusion of the BC designation date upon supposedly authentic ancient documents. Okay, anyway. I guess that's the lesson I want to leave with our Monday morning students. Look hard enough at anything and you'll eventually see everything. And if you've just read over the book Chicken Kabala once or twice, maybe you might want to pick it up again and look a little harder at it. And it might expand your enjoyment and your edification, perhaps. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.